Hello students, today we are going to start part 4 of the chapter Colonialism and the City. In the previous video we discussed about the life of the people during partition in Delhi, and today we'll discuss about the topic inside the old city. So let's start the topic. Meanwhile, what happened to the old city that had been Shahjahanabad in the past? What system was there? Mughal Delhi's famed canals had brought not only fresh drinking water to homes but also water for other domestic uses. It means during Mughal period in Delhi, water carried through canals for drinking as well as for other uses in the homes. This excellent system of water supply and drainage was neglected in the 19th century, especially 1880s and 1890s. And the system of wells also, baulis, also broke down, and channels to remove household waste called effluents were damaged. It means the old system was damaged in Delhi. This was at a time when the population of the city was continuously growing, time of increasing population. The broken down canals could not serve the needs of this rapidly increasing population because the system was damaged, and so in this way, according to the demands of the people, it was not fulfilled. At the end of the 19th century, if we talk about 1895 or to 1900, the Shahjahani drains were closed and a new system of open surface drains was introduced. At that time, during Shahjahan or in Shahjahanabad, the drainage system was under the ground, but now it was of open surface drains. The system too was soon overburdened, and many of the wealthier inhabitants complained about the stench from roadside, previews, and overflowing open drains. The Delhi Municipal Committee was unwilling to spend money on a good drainage system because this drainage system was completely open on the surface. So it caused a lot of problems for the people, especially wealthier people and higher classes people, and they started to complain regarding this. But the thinking of Delhi Municipal Committee that they did not want to spend money on this kind of system. At the same time, though millions of rupees were being spent on drainage system in the New Delhi area, and you can see the figure Chandni Chowk in Delhi in the late 19th century, and here a famous Bauli near shrine of Nizamuddin Aulia here in Delhi, this one. So let's discuss further the decline of Havelis. Till now we have discussed about the destruction and damage of the drainage system and well system during the British, clear, and that system was continuously followed by the people of Delhi from Mughal period. The decline of Havelis. The Mughal aristocracy in the 17th and 18th centuries lived in grand mansions. These grand houses or mansions were called Havelis, and you have seen Havelis somewhere in books. You have read about Havelis. It may be possible that you have seen Havelis in the films and on TV, right? So these kinds of Havelis used to be there. A map of mid 19th century showed at least 100 such Havelis, which were large walled compounds with mansions, courtyards, and fountains. A lot of things used to be there in one Haveli, and many families used to stay there. A Haveli housed many families that we have discussed, and on entering the Haveli through a beautiful gateway, you reached an open courtyard surrounded by public rooms meant for visitors and business used exclusively by males. The inner courtyard with its pavilions and rooms was meant for the women of the household. Rooms in the Havelis had multiple uses and very little by way of furniture. It means lot of features were there, and with specific attributes Havelis were there. Even in the mid 19th century, Qamar al-Din Khan's Haveli had several structures within it and included housing for the cart drivers, tent pitchers, and torch bearers, as well as for accountants, clerks, and household servants. So, for different kinds of people, these housing system were developed in these kinds of havelis. As for example, we have discussed about Qamar al-Din Khan's Haveli. Many of the Mughal amirs were noble people, higher classes people during Mughal period. They were unable to maintain these large establishments under conditions of British rule. They could not maintain it, and Havelis therefore began to be subdivided and sold. So these Havelis were sold by the people. Often the street front of the Havelis became shops or warehouses. If you go even today in Delhi, then you can see the Havelis on the roads with the shopping complexes and big shops. Some Havelis were taken over by upcoming mercantile class. It means traders, but many fell into decay and disuse. So many of the Havelis were destroyed and completely damaged with the passing of the time. So the colonial bungalow was quite different from the Haveli, meant for one nuclear family. It was a large single storied structure with a pitched roof and usually set in 1 or 2 acres of open ground. It had separate living and dining rooms and bedrooms and a wide veranda. You can see in this picture, we'll see, and running in the front and sometimes on three sides. Kitchen, stables, and servants' quarters were in a separate space from the main house. The house was run by dozens of servants. The women of household often sat on the verandas to supervise tailors or other tradesmen. You can see in this picture. This is the figure 14, colonial bungalow in New Delhi, like this way. This is single story house, but it's very big house, and this is called bungalow with the large veranda and open courtyard. Like this is the park with the beautiful plants, beautiful weaving. After that, the municipality begins to plan. First of all, see this picture. This is the photo from Old Delhi, the area of Old Delhi in Chandni Chowk or Chavadi Bazaar. You can see today you go there. So this kind of street you can see easily. The census of 1931, census. This is the demographic demographic calculation of the population in the country, started in 1872 in India. First census, it was not regular, but first census in 1872 and first decadal census started in India in 1881. So this was about census of 1931, revealed that the walled city area was horribly crowded with as many as 90 persons per acre, while New Delhi had only about 3 persons per acre. This is the density we can understand, and the distribution of the people on the land: 90 persons per acre in Old Delhi and 3 persons per acre in New Delhi. So this is beautifully spacious area. The poor conditions in the walled city, however, did not stop it from expanding in 1888. If we take an example, 1888, an extension scheme called the Lahore Gate Improvement Scheme was planned by Robert Clark for the walled city residents, those people who used to live in the walled city. So for those people, this scheme was introduced. The idea was to draw residents away from the old city to a new type of market square, around which shops would be built. Streets in this redevelopment strictly followed the grid pattern. There used to be a grid pattern and were of identical width, size, and character. Land was divided into regular areas for the construction of neighborhoods. Clarkganj, it is known as Clarkganj as the development was called, remained incomplete and did not help to decongest the old city. So crowd in the old city was continuously means going on, and it remained in the old city because these kinds of policies were completely failed. Even in 1912, water supply and drainage in these new localities was very poor. So it was a bad condition in old city or world cities. The Delhi Improvement Trust was set up in 1936. You have to remember, dear students, and it built areas like Daryaganj South for wealthy Indians. Houses were grouped around parks. Within the houses, space was divided according to the new rules of privacy. Instead of spaces being shared by many families or groups, now different members of the same family had their own private spaces within the home. So this was the new system developed in Delhi by the people and by Delhi Improvement Trust, that was set up in 1936. So dear students, in this way we have completed the topic. Here we can have at a glance in elsewhere. Herbert Baker in South Africa. In the early 1890s, a young English architect named Herbert Baker, you have listened this name because in the previous video we discussed about Herbert Baker, went to South Africa in search of work. It was in South Africa that Baker came in touch with Cecil Rhodes, the governor of Cape Town at that time, and who inspired in Baker a love for the British Empire and admiration for the architectural heritage of ancient Rome and Greece. Ancient Rome and Greece both. Here we can see this these two images. Figure 16, this is the image of the building in New Delhi, right? So this is the Union Building. Union Building was also located on the steep hill as it the Secretariat Building in New Delhi. Figure 16 you can see, and figure 17, this one. This is the building of the Union Building that Baker designed in the city of Pretoria in South Africa. It used some of the elements of ancient classical architecture that Baker later included in his plans of the Secretariat Building in New Delhi. You can see the similarities in these two pictures. This kind of similarity can be observed. Clear? So these kinds of similarities can be observed in both of the pictures. So this was about Herbert Baker. So dear students, in this way we have completed the chapter. You have to revise the chapter by reading from the text, and in the next video we'll meet with the MCQs. So keep revising, keep learning. Thank you. Have a nice day.